Did you see the USA versus Canada hockey game? The national anthem, they're playing the U.S. national anthem in Montreal, and the entire crowd through the whole national anthem is booing.
Is it snowing in Green Bay? Yes, of course I did, bro.
And then
9
US,
seconds.
Within the first 4 minutes of the game, there's 3 fights.
Excuse me, first minute.
So first minute of the game.
I watched it.
3 fights.
Oh, yeah.
And then we come and we beat those dudes in their national pastime.
It was amazing. They were saying that...
Dude, there was eagles in my heart right there. Like, the funny thing is like I literally had this thought on the way home or on the way to work this morning. I'm sitting there going, you know what? I've seen people protest like in the U.S. and they do things I wouldn't do when it's based towards our national anthem or our flag and stuff like that. But then I go, you know what? They're American citizens, and they have the right to do this because we live in this great nation. And then the Canadians do it, and I'm like, beat them! You better... Dude, that was patriotic, man.
I showed Angie, my wife, a meme yesterday, and it was a bald eagle, on top of a Canadian goose. And it was 3 on the eagle, 1 on the goose. That was the score of the game, 3-1. And this eagle has just got this goose on the ground pinned. I'm like, yeah, that's us.
And I don't even like hockey.
Oh, I love.
But I have been so invested in
hockey.
this.
I so much love hockey. I love this time of the year, getting toward playoffs. Somebody said that they were comparing all the All-Star games, like. NFL's gone to flag football. The NBA is a...
So is that what this was an all-star game?
Yeah, hang on. So I'm going to explain that. So the NBA has gone to this skills thing, and it's just no defense. And they're trying. But NHL, this all-star is 4 nations, the best players from the 4 top nations, Sweden, Finland, Canada, U.S., in a round robin that's a week long. That will end on Thursday with the U.S. already in the championship for best team. And, dude, they're dropping gloves 9 seconds into the game. It's not an all-star. It's a battle, you know.
The first one to hit the ice is the loser type thing?
Sometimes it's connectability, how many fists connected into your face. But it was...
that would be a good measurement of victory.
But it's tough because you're trying to get your team riled up. That's why they fight. It's like, team, come on. We need motivation. You didn't need much after the booing in the national anthem, but the Kachuk brothers really did the job, and it just set the tone for the rest of the match. I mean, even awesome. The announcers were like, oh, okay, we got a whole different game going on here.
So speaking of Canadians, Marc's from Green Bay.
Marc Foss is from Green Bay and came in this weekend to work with our sound and our tech team at our church. And Marc and I met when we were in high school. He's 3 years younger than I did, but he was serving in our youth ministry. And we had a very large youth ministry when I was growing up, over 500 students. And so it was a highly produced youth ministry from a stage perspective. And Marc caught it early on that God had wired him up and gifted him in the area of audiovisual. And so bringing him in after spending his last 40 years of his life in this field was just, it just made sense. Mm-hmm. It made sense to bring him in because he can raise the bar for our church toward excellence and using your gifts. And that's what we're talking about today, is using your gifts that God has given you. He's given all of us who believe in Jesus spiritual gifts to be used for his purpose to reaching people. And Marc is in his lane. This guy knows his stuff. So I thought it was
absolute servant's heart too.
Totally.
Like yesterday,
you have to be.
I met him Saturday. I came up here to practice my sermon yesterday on Saturday night. They were doing their little conference with our tech team. Wonderful. And then kind of meet him there next Sunday or the next day. So yesterday morning, I'm getting ready to go up and teach, I believe, second service, so it's between services. And he totally didn't have to, but comes up to me and goes, hey, you need anything? You need any water? Anything like that? I'll go find it. I'll go bring it to you. And I'm just like, man, this guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Servant
he
heart.
could be over here like, I'm here to talk about tech and only do tech stuff, but man, he's just ready to help out however he can.
He was calling me weeks before coming out saying, I really want to serve your team well. What can I do? What can I do? So yeah, definitely a servant's heart. And I think you're all going to enjoy the conversation because all of us have spiritual gifts. And when we're in our lane, there's nothing better to honor God with humility than to use our gifts for his purpose. So it's going to be a good conversation. Hey, by the way, speaking of being in your lane, yesterday Nick spoke on the importance of reading the Bible. And man, I thought you did a great job. I thought, I went home and after I went to the bathroom, I told my wife, "Hey, honey, I pooped in the potty," and she was excited for me.
Did she celebrate?
She celebrated with me, and she was like, "Good boy, Tim."
Dude, I was literally just thinking, I'm like, where are you going with this? Hey, why don't you hit us with the intro on that?
Hey, I'm Tim Homa. Welcome to the 61st Minute, a podcast of Community Bible, and I'm with my co-host and good friend Nick Kerouac. And today, you are joining us to talk about the importance of spiritual gifts. And I get to do it with my buddy today. It's awesome.
And if you successfully go to the potty this week,
I pooped in the potty!
we're excited for you. If you have no idea what we're talking about,
listen to Nick's sermon from yesterday, and you will fully understand where we're going.
All right, we're excited for the podcast.
Enjoy. Mark, tell us a little bit about what led you into this world of sound and tech and audio and all this stuff. What was it that you said, you know what, I love that stuff?
I think I've always been that guy who's had all this sound equipment and good systems in his room, rattling the rafters in my house growing up. Hey, if it didn't work, I'd try to fix it. What does this make it work? And it was always around electronics. And then, in high school, back in 84, 85, which is really dating myself, I was at a summer camp for the high school ministry that you and I were involved with. And that was when Top Gun was humongous. And they had a volleyball tournament kind of replicating that field. Now, none of us looked.
Y'all do shirtless volleyball tournaments?
Yep,
we did.
Not this guy, though. Even back then, not this guy.
I was this big around back then, man. I was about the size of a pinky. That was it.
And so I raked Top Gun into the sand there, and the worship leader, a gentleman by the name of Joe Horness, who Tim and I know, grabbed a hold of me and said, "Hey, I see something in you. You want to come join my tech team?" And I'm like, "Sure. What are we doing?" And from that point on, it just began this overwhelming, I get to play with cool equipment, I get to do some cool things, and then that's morphed over the years in my involvement in it, and it's been over 40 years.
Mark, what is fascinating is that there's a lot of people who have this ability to do audio. I mean, it's a specialized area. But not a lot of people can say that it also ties into their relationship with Jesus. And, obviously, this is a profession. This is something that you've done for 40 years of your life. This is something you've given your heart, soul, strength, sweat, all of it to. But how does this tie in? I mean, when you think about your relationship with Jesus, and you become a follower of Jesus, surrender your life to Jesus, you've learned, like I did in our youth ministry from our youth pastor, Dan Webster, the importance of spiritual gifts. That God has wired us up. When we become followers of Jesus, we know that we are transplanted within us gifts to be used. Nick has gifts. I have gifts. You have gifts. We discover those gifts as we grow in our relationship. So when you were being invited, which is part of the journey about being a Christian with Joe, what made that tie, that relationship with Jesus, and your desire to be pursuing sound and tech? How did that all come together? How did that click for you?
Feeling a part of something bigger than myself, and going, wow, I can be a part of this. I can do this. I have these varied gifts that I'm able to do. And wow, I'm able to do this, to do something bigger than myself. I'm part of something that's just not about Mark. It's about something bigger than me. And I didn't know it at the time as much as I do now. You know, I'm blanking on the exact scripture, but it says, we've all been given varied grace for the betterment of the body. You know,
It's in the New Testament.
I get
Somewhere in the Bible.
Somewhere in the Bible.
I
Toward the latter part.
was trying to look it up, but
He's getting there.
but
Yeah.
the thing of it is even back then I knew I'm not the guy that's going to stand up in front of 100, 200, 300, 1,000. Like that's just not me. I'm not the preacher. I'm not the guy that's going to give the message and bring that scripture to life. I know that I can get behind a lighting console or an audio console and I can make the guy that's doing that look good, sound good, give him an environment that is going to help bring that to life.
You're going to need a lot of help to make me look good on stage. It's going to take a lot of...
I've always seen tech team. It's interesting because it's a job of humility and selflessness, right? It always has been.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. I've always seen it as the offensive line of the Sunday morning service.
Oh, that's a great way to...
And here's why. Because they never get the glory. They never get the praise. A flawless tech service, no one says a word.
No one.
You know why? Because no one notices it.
You know when they
But when
notice
something screws up,
That's right.
everyone's looking to the back,
Well,
saying, "Hey, why did that feedback, or why did that flash, or why did that do that?" And it's like, man, you only hear the negatives on that side of things.
I think the pressure for tech is this. We all know that one thing can turn someone's attention away from worship. It could be a glitch on the screen. It could be a wrong slide. It could be a light cue that goes awry.
A microphone not turned on at the proper time.
Right. And so that can automatically change someone's perspective or their involvement in worship. And we never even, you're right. It's a humbling role.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah,
You found that verse, didn't you?
I found two of them that I like.
I can tell he's got his phone. He's holding it.
He's excited.
All right. What are they?
Well, the one that I was talking about is 1 Peter 4:10. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace.
There it is. Yeah.
You know, and if you'd have looked at me back when we were in high school ministry and I was just starting out my production tech team career, if you want to call it that, I didn't get that. I do now. You know, back then it was, hey, look at all the cool gadgets.
Right.
You know, look at all the cool lights. How many lights can I put on stage? How many, as someone that we both know, oh, can I get the hairspray to catch on fire? Maybe that's not a good idea. But it was all about that. Now it's not about that. Am I still a tech geek on the inside and I like gadgets? Heck yeah. What's more important to me now is I want to set the tech team up to succeed. I want to see the spark in someone's eyes going, wait, I can do that? I can be a part of that? Soon as that happens, game on.
Yeah.
Then you know that they are engaging in a way that they've never engaged before in their ministry.
All right, let's take that next step then, because there's a lot of people listening that are not sound techies. They're not into the audio and visual and that kind of stuff, but we all have gifts. And so how do we discover, how do we find that passion? How do we, really pursue what God may be putting in our heart, how he's wired us and gifted us, because he's gifted you, be able to speak in front of people. He's gifted me with abilities and gifts, and just like Mark. So Nick, what do you think it is that leads us to know that that's a gift that God's given us?
Well, I think the first thing we've got to do is get rid of all the preconceived notions of what it looks like to serve in ministry. I feel like we make it cookie cutter. You're either, okay, there's a tech team on Sunday. You can either serve in kids ministry, or you can serve as someone who preaches the gospel, or someone who sings on stage. And then you have a lot of people out there that maybe they don't fit any of those cookie cutter ministries. The thing you got to do is, I think you got to figure out, what has God gifted me with? And then when you figure out that gift, you are going to be the person who knows and prays about and figures out how to best utilize that gift in the form of ministry. You can't wait until, Pastor Tim or Pastor Richie develop a ministry and then recruit you onto that ministry based on your skills. I think you just have to get to the point where you go, you know what? I'm unbelievably organized at spreadsheets. I'm going to walk in and I'm going to find a way how I can be an administrative leader in this church. Or, you know what? One thing I can do is I can put the headphones in and I can lock in when it comes to cleaning my house. And it's the way I found peace. You know what? I'm going to come up on a Tuesday every now and again and I'm going to get that lobby straightened up and ready for Sunday. Whatever that might look like, I think that's really what we have to do first. And then once you figure out those gifts, just be willing to step out and do it. One of the things, this is Leadership 101. The best advocate for you is you. But then at the same time, also have enough humility to go, man, I love tech. But if I want to jump on that tech team, I do realize I may not be the best, but be willing to learn. At first when you start serving in tech, it's like, man, all these sweet gadgets, all these cool things. Like most tech folks, I was the same way when I started with video. You almost get overly excited that you go overboard with all the cool stuff that you can do. And you kind of said that a little bit with trying to catch the hairspray on fire, right? What's the point? At what point did you get to this isn't just a cool opportunity for me to play with fun gadgets, but okay, this is a bigger picture. This is me getting to help people approach the throne of God every Sunday morning and get to have an experience where they can be confronted by the Holy Spirit, where you start taking the focus off of what you get to do and more of how you get to serve in a bigger picture. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
It completely does. I think the first part of that is when we were shared stories from leadership of, hey, this person was in the audience, they had this going on in their life, and because of the service, they turn their life over. Or you hear the stories in when you're baptizing people and you're hearing the stories and getting a glimpse of what it means for that person to be a part of this congregation or this church. More specifically, something that I shared in the training that we did on this past weekend is we had a young man on the tech team when I was a tech director who had gotten into a challenging life circumstance, and he had to deal with some stuff with the courts and had to do a lot of community service. Well, his parents came to us and said, hey, can he do his community service with you guys? And we're like, yeah. What was cool, the big change for that was, here's a young man who got caught up in something that wasn't entirely his fault. It got pinned on him incorrectly. But when I saw his spark happen and go, oh, audio, I'm a musician, or a wannabe musician. I can do that. Fast forward a couple years into it, he joins our tech team as an audio engineer. A year after that, at a different church, he gets baptized. And he calls out in the video that they did about him, he goes, it was because people saw something in me and gravitated and got around me and said, I see you.
Here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
I see who you are. I don't see who they say you are. I see who God's made you to be. Come on, let's go.
That's cool.
That's the kind of thing for me that makes all the hours, all of the sleeping in the catwalks growing up, putting 120 feet of truss up in the air at 3 a.m, makes it all worth it.
Because if there's anything and this is questions go anywhere, as a tech person, as someone who enjoys videos and cameras, we can be a stubborn bunch. And you know that.
Yeah, I do.
So how does one handle a tech person? Because every young tech person who knows everything. I was there, right?
I was there.
Inevitably, lead pastor is going to come up to you. Whoever's, your direct supervisor is going to come up to you and be like, the bass doesn't need to be that loud. The lights don't need to move that much. The haze doesn't need to be that thick. How do you get to the point from, I'm going to be offended and frustrated that they're telling me what I know should be better to, I'm part of a bigger picture here. It is maybe we either need to have a discussion or, maybe he's right about, I could be wrong about the bass being too high or the volume being at a higher decibel level. So how do you get your mindset to the point of, okay, even though I feel like I know better, I need to get to a spot where I put the team before what I think it needs to look like?
I think it's having well-established framework for which the team needs to operate in. And
so it's a leadership thing.
Yeah. You're delving down to, here's the area in which we're doing. Mm-hmm. If you're within this area, have at it. Go to town. Mm-hmm. If you're outside that area, we may need to have a conversation. And I was, as a youngster, hopped up on Mountain Dew. Tim
that was our drink of choice.
It probably literally was Mountain Dew.
That was our water. We drank Mountain Dew warm out of the river. I mean, we would put the cans of Mountain Dew in the river just to cool them down.
Yep.
But it was the drink of choice. I drank more Mountain Dew as a teenager than I did water.
Y'all are hitting every stereotypical tech team.
Right.
Yeah, but this was our student ministries.
Right.
We would bring cases to camp. I wasn't tech team. This was just
funny.
Our student ministry was addicted to Mountain Dew.
Now it would be Mountain Dew and Flamin' Hot Cheetos or the Takis. Everything about it.
But the thing about it is the leadership that I had, the worship leader, Joe Hornez, I was running around 100 million miles an hour, just out of control. He grabbed me one day, physically grabbed a hold of me and said, look, we need to talk. He had enough love for me as a leader to go, I see a whole lot of potential in you, but we need to rein it in. We need to dial it in. And I think it's developing that relational collateral with the people on your team to go, I'm going to speak into that. I'm going to come alongside you. Call it relational collateral, call it mentorship, call it whatever you want to label it as. It's being able to have those conversations to go, man, you are gifted beyond your wildest dreams. What God has in store for you is way bigger than you running around like this. Mm-hmm. Let's work together to do that.
Yeah. I think another piece to that, adding on to what Mark is saying, I think it is true for all people when they discover their spiritual gifts and they're in their lane, is that we tend to look for the approval of people and not realize that we need to humbly come before God and be thankful. Mm-hmm. Like when, I'm this way, I go right to my wife after I preach. How did I do? Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, thank you, Lord, for the opportunity, may this message have touched somebody that you had their heart ready for. Instead, I go looking for praise. Mm-hmm. Good job, Tim. Good job. And she's gotten to a point where she just says the same thing every time now. It's just, but when, if we're in our lane and we're doing what we want to do and doing what God's called us to do, we sometimes can get caught up in the pride. Mm-hmm. So when we're asked, when somebody comes to me and says, you need to shorten that by a minute, how dare you speak and step on the Lord's word right now? Or the sound, hey, the sound's too loud. How dare you? I know what we're doing here. I think I have gone before. Now, I've had the opportunity over 40 years to learn about sound, and I've directed services for a church for a season. So I kind of know, and I still am reluctant or hesitant to go to a sound person and go, that high is too high, that we need more mid or you need more low. Mm-hmm. And they'll go, who are you? You're the preacher guy. And I'm like, and there is a humility level that I think can be forgotten with spiritual gifts, that God gave us those, and we need to be humbled to know that there are going to be times that we're not perfect, and that gives us the opportunity to grow.
Well, I think that's kind of what I was taking out of this conversation, right? First thing, recognize your spiritual gifts. Yeah. Second thing, take action on your spiritual gifts. Third thing, have humility and be teachable.
And know that that gift came from God, not from you.
And then grow from it. Yeah. To your point, for the longest, when I first started teaching on a Sunday morning, I got done preaching one time, and it was the video was on Facebook. The live stream was on Facebook, and of course, I go through the comments, and you hear, all these good jobs, and that's fine. I mean, I felt good about it. It naturally feels good. But there was one comment out of the bunch of comments. There was one comment that was negative. It ate me alive.
Yeah.
And for a while, it was a struggle to put my pride aside and my people pleaser aside and say, hey, I'm going to focus in on what my spiritual gifts are, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability to the glory of God. But then at the same time, there is a group of people that I do go to afterwards and ask, hey, how was that? But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Like there's a select group of people in my circle that I'll ask because I truly respect their opinion and I know they're going to be honest with me. And I know if I do that, I can hear from them, I can take criticism, and I can improve on that. That's teachability, right? Tim, you're one of those people. You, Richie, my wife, Ed Saucier, Frankie, really the pastoral staff. And then, there was one time a guy came up to me and said, hey, Nick, wasn't your best. And I wanted to be like, that's okay. Like, I'd love for you to come up there and preach. You got to be qualified, right?
I had an audio tech guy at my former church before I came up here. And this guy that's what he did. Same world that Mark's in and worked in that field, but he did on Sundays, and he was great. Mm-hmm. He always wanted to know, how was it? Because he always wanted to, that's church service, that's reaching people, that is communicating through all the different ways that we communicate on a Sunday morning. He was never about, and if I said to him, it's a little loud, he would fix it, and then he would text me, how's that? And this guy Humility. Knows his stuff, but he just understood the lane that he was in was to serve at the church and to make certain that what we did on Sunday mornings, well, that's 100%. Good. That's good stuff.
It is
Mark, good stuff, man. Thanks.
And I think to that point is his heart posture was completely different.
Let's go. Yeah.
His heart posture wasn't about that is good. This is the tech stuff. I'm gonna blow the bass out really. His heart posture was, I know the ramifications that this has. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeking for my own pride. I'm seeking, are we doing good? Is this in the lane that I need to be in, that this audio needs to be in?
Yeah, that's good. Heart posture. I like it.
Usually when someone drops the phrase heart posture, man, this is going to be a good take.
Yeah.
Because it's always about heart posture, isn't it?
It has to be. It has to be, because that's the driving force behind everything that we do is our heart.
True worship is responding to the greatness and glory of God. When you know how God has gifted you and you know your lane, you're serving out of, I'm worshiping God with the gifts and talents that He gave me. That's my response. God, you've gifted me so much. I want to show others you because of what you did in me.
That's good.
Mark, when do you head home?
This morning.
This afternoon. Driving up to XNA, flying out this afternoon, right? Heading back to Green Bay, where the temperature is currently
-5.
Yeah, -5, bro. -5. That's below zero.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, I was trying to calculate that. Thanks, man. I appreciate
It's not
that.
Celsius. That's Fahrenheit. Hey, thanks, Mark. Appreciate you. Yeah. Man, appreciate your time this weekend.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Be safe on your way back home.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
He's going to be on speed dial, though, for our sound and our tech team, because they're going to have him. We're going to work with him virtually. All right. Hey, thanks, man.
See you next week. Thank you for listening to the 61st Minute Podcast by Community Bible. Our goal is to release a new podcast every Wednesday reviewing what we discussed during our hour gathering the previous Sunday morning at Community Bible Church. If you don't have a church home, we would love for you to join us on Sundays at 9 o'clock or 10:30 a.m. live at any of our 4 campuses. Also, you can watch online or review Sunday morning sermon at communitychurch.com/messages. Again, that's communitychurch.com/messages. Tune in for next week's episode of the 61st Minute Podcast by Community Bible on main platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to your podcasts.